the shape's more or less correct at the very beginning, so you don't have to correct them too many times. Now, I mean, I can give you like cookbook formulas like, okay, the average person is 7.5 heads high. So, you know, I could draw a very rigid person, you know, here's a head, and then I'll measure 7.5 heads down, and his feet are down here someplace, you know, because I'm 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.5. Okay, so that would be his feet. Typically, the hip bones, I guess the crotch is halfway down, so that would be 3.5 down. So that would like be the crotch. You know, I could do all this, but the problem with this is that you'd have to be, I mean, I have to be perfectly rigid, there would be no foreshortening, and you would have to be standing at my eye level. If you were seated and looking up, or above me looking down, the perspective changes entirely, and none of this cookbook stuff works. I mean, I can give you all the cookbook stuff, but it only works for absolute specific cases. Okay, now with standing poses, for instance, I give you the side pose. Line of action, because I'm going to have them swaying out. This would be a side pose, which I'll have Cheryl start with. And then this would be my shape for the chest. And again, I have space before I hit the pelvis. Now the pelvis from the side, I'm drawing like a circle, because you're viewing it up from the side. I mean, in actuality, the bone would be up here like that. And if she had all her weight on one leg, I'd draw a triangle, and then I'd put a little triangle into the foot. And maybe she has one leg kicked out like this. If she has one arm sloping down like that, maybe one arm on the other side behind her head. You've seen this how many times, Nick?
A billion, zillion, jillion. I've never seen a model actually throw this pose, Ben.
Well,
Yeah.
she's going to do it. So Cheryl's going to do it for us. Anyway, okay. The point is, I'm relating, I mean, I automatically, even though this is a fairly rigid pose, and your eye level is probably here someplace, it's about 7.5 to 8 heads tall. I mean, unless I want to make this a superhero. If it was a superhero, it might be 10 or 11 heads tall. I mean, the comic book guys, if you draw comics, those guys are 10 to 11 heads tall. I mean, they're not normal, they're pinheads, with gigantic bodies, okay? The average person is between 7 and 8 heads tall, typically 7.5. So this is not a superhero, this is an average person. Okay, so, again, I mean, it's all, like I said, if you could do a stick figure, you can do this. Now, I could start filling this in. Suppose if this were a female, I could put breasts in, right? I could put the bottom of the rib cage. Connecting the pelvis and the rib cage, I have this, basically the whole stomach girdle, which is, well, there's a lot of muscles and fat in there. I could just lump that in as one form. I essentially could go into the buttock and then the thigh, essentially the kneecap. I can go into the calf and then into the foot, which initially I'm putting it as a triangular shape. I can actually, this leg is back. Again, see, I'm filling in the forms, which I haven't asked you to do yet, but okay. Because I have these initial shapes about the right size, I didn't have to do too much correction. And every time I go through, what you're going to see with this technique is every time I go through, I'm going to add more. I'm going to, you know, I go back now, I'll go through again, and I can actually add a few more corrections, a few more details. I'll start playing with edges, which we won't talk about till the 4th class. I mean, I'll actually start putting features into the face. So it all makes sense when you put it all together. But what I'm trying to do is I'm giving you a piece of it at a time, so you can go home and think about it, work on it, and then come back and get the next piece next week. And by 6 weeks, you're going to get the whole thing put together. Okay? But this is really the key. Okay, that's it. Cut it.